Now, our dear friend, the busiest man in show business, I always say, and we're so happy that he has time for us each and every week. Now, normally Tuesdays, but schedule gets in the way, so a special edition of Sean Salisbury this morning. Good morning, brothers. Dave and Jason, how are you?
I'm doing good, fellas. Good to be on.
What Jason and I were talking about during the break, first question we both wanted to ask you. You are a diehard Raider fan, although you played in mostly Minnesota. You are a California kid. A lot of our conversation today, Sean, is about the final A's game, perhaps, but we think final A's game at the Coliseum this afternoon. And we just wanted to ask you if you had any thoughts, memories, whether from up close or afar, on that whole scene and everything that's going on, but your memories about being in the Coliseum, if you have.
Yeah, you know what? Memories. I mean, as a Raider fan going back there, and I was in a Charger when I went in there to play, and I went right to the black hole and started during pregame, and before we warm up when we're getting loose, I went over there and high fived the black the
black hole.
It was the black hole,
yeah.
And because I love them. It's just that's the Stabler and Mark Van Egan and Branch and Bolitnikoff and Ted Hendricks. Man, that was my era. And it doesn't just stop there. Baseball. I've been to watch baseball there. I grew up, and my childhood was, obviously I'm a Red Sox fan, but my childhood was Reggie Jackson, Joe Rudy, Gene Tennis, Sal Bando, Reds and A's, the Big Red Machine in World Series. That Catfish Hunter, Vita Blue. I grew up watching, so I went and watched the games there, a weekend series, and the music when you walked in always sticks out. The best music in Major League Baseball was always in Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. I feel for the fans, but it had to happen. I mean, this has been going back and forth. It had to happen. It bums me out because I love the picture, but it made me sad of the Langolier where he was giving dirt to the fans and putting them in bottles for them. It's a sad end to what was growing up, and competitor Billy Bean's been a buddy of mine since 1979. So Billy and I have been close for years. So there's a lot to it, a lot of layers. I feel bad for the fans, but in truth, in this Major League Baseball we're in, and building stuff around the ballpark and all that, it had to happen. Feel for the fans, but it was inevitable, and it's going to be a lot of memories that are going to be left behind.
Yeah, it's amazing. There'll be generations that probably won't get that, Sean, the iconic part of what Oakland was with, the Warriors right there, as you said, the Raiders and the A's, and they were all at different points, really great franchises. It's amazing that some people won't really even know what that meant.
I couldn't agree more. I think I remember, guys, when there was a time, you guys probably remember this too, is when the Red Sox, they were talking about tearing down Fenway. You guys remember that?
Yep, sure do.
2 decades, 15. They were talking about tearing down Fenway. And I thought, how in the world can you do that? I know suites and money and revenue, but there's just certain things you can't do. You don't mess with Wrigley Field. You don't mess with Fenway Park. I understand why we say the same. For me, it was an iconic place, Oakland Alameda, for obvious reasons as a Raider, and all the playing games on the dirt on a baseball field for football. So many Blanda and LaMonica and Stabler memories, but like I said, just as many for me, watching Reggie Jackson do his thing and watching, the incredible rival in the World Series with the A's and the Reds. So I feel bad for generations that are going to miss it, and unfortunately the last handful of years have not been the way they've wanted it. And just think about what Billy and Moneyball did to change baseball with analytics and going on the cheap, and still finding a way at times when you lose Zito and Mulder and that group, and they can still, and Tim Hudson, and still go on and win games. It was a pretty impressive run and phenomenal memories for me. And I can't imagine for those that are lived around it and around it every day.
And Sean, I know when you played and when Jason and I grew up that, these teams weren't worth $5 billion. You're going into these, in many cases, older, grimy stadiums with older, grimy fans and old, grimy players that sometimes it wouldn't be unheard of to drink beer afterwards at the local watering hole in the days of Bob Uecker and we must be in the front row, less filling, tastes great, all of that era. And it just seems to, one thing we've talked about, Sean, is A's fans and that Coliseum and that environment with, Levi Stadium and all these new places. They're just so, it's like walking around in a hospital. They're so clean and all that they're really, that one of the fan groups, Sean, calls this Coliseum the last dive bar. And it really does seem like this might be the last dive bar in sports going away.
I'm 100% with you. This is a pat on the back, but let me tell you how much I love being around the fans. And in our media, I've been in 30 years now. When I go to, we get credentials when we go to games because we cover it, and we're the flagship station for the Astros. But the reason I say this is that watering. That's how I feel about it. I love the new amenities at ballparks, but I hate tearing down old golf courses and redoing them. Ballparks like Oakland, even though I get the revenue side, Fenway, hell, Dodger Stadium is the third oldest ballpark, I think, in major. And you look at it and you say, it's the third oldest? So we got all these new facilities, and I get it. They're beautiful and awesome. But you do lose that sense of what the best bars in the world are. Good music, dive bars, drinking out of plastic cups at time, mugs, beer in a bottle, all the things that we just love as fans. I go to Astros games. You realize, and I mean, this is the honest-to-God truth. I've been here 11 years. I have not sat in the press box for an Astros game using a credential one time. Never. I buy my tickets, and I go sit in the crowd with the fans because I want to. That's where I get to watch better baseball there. I'm covered it media-wise, but I want to be down there and listen and hear. So, yeah, I hate the fact that we lose that feeling of, is all corporate, and you're going there and 70% of the seats are safe for sponsors. I get the whole game, but we lose a big part of the game. So going there beforehand, drinking old style beer if you're in Chicago. If you're and park in Pittsburgh, it's not new now, but one of the beautiful parks. Yet you still miss Three Rivers and you still miss Riverfront. I love new amenities. I just hate when we get the old feel and. Like going to Daytona 500. People that have been there, it was when I went there, it was beat up. The stands were torn up. Yet it was Daytona. It's supposed to smell. It's supposed to have stains all over it's supposed to be uncomfortable. I love that, and that's corporate America. That's the way it is. We want all this pomp and circumstance, but you lose generations of real fans. It's the same thing. We lose generations because parents don't seem to be, I go with my dad or my mom where you just go to batting practice and hang around. Now they let you into stadiums a little later. I love new school amenities, but I'm old school at heart for ballparks, golf courses, football stadiums, even though I know they look better and they're more pleasing to the eye. It makes for better fandom. I don't. Yeah. I just don't.
Maybe tying two things together here, kind of the old school and current. There's not any stadiums, I believe anymore, Sean, that have football and baseball, but Jack Murphy did. The Coliseum did. I'm sure you had to play on some infield dirt while quarterbacking. How was that like? And that's probably an upgrade that's for the better, but what was that like?
And it was brutal because, you know how you walk off a little step? And it could be a small one, but if you don't see it coming, your lower back feels like it's going to blow out. And for the field goal kicker who's lined up on grass, but the hole's in dirt, and even turf to turf, guys. When we played in Philly not Three Rivers, but
Veterans,
Veterans Stadium. There were seams in the turf from the baseball infield because they had that turf infield there, right? And to the outfield, that there were seams in the turf that you could fit the width of your foot in it. And we were playing a football game on it. I know that sounds like I'm really old. I don't feel that long ago. And that stadium is one that I remember Wendell Davis, the Chicago Bears wide receiver, went over the middle and caught a deep in cut and came down and landed on his feet, blew out both knees and won on that straight. It was like playing on concrete. Yet there was still something about Three Rivers and Riverfront and those old concrete facilities and those dirt infields on some places and turf infield on others. But it made you feel like, okay, this is old school. I'm playing with the Raiders or with the Oakland A's and Reggie Jackson homered. I friggin' loved it, but it was a different game. But going to Cleveland, another place, Municipal Stadium, where two guys to one locker, the shower thing. I know it sounds awful, but I'm a traditionalist when it comes to that stuff. and we just don't. And there is no more, dirt to grass infield. And I kind of miss that part of, okay, we're going to add another little element to this football game. Can you handle kicking and throwing when you pop back to pass from dirt to grass? It was different, no doubt.
Hey, Sean, I know as a player you probably didn't experience much of this, but can we give a shout out to the places where you stood hip to hip and peed in the trough?
Dude, and you had to look, and you're staring straight into the tile in front of you.
That's right. That's right.
Remind me one day. I'll tell you a story when I was at Fenway Park. Oh, dude, maybe. Oh, Sean, you went through that. Yep, sure did. But it'll make, and you'll say, "Oh, ode to the old ballparks," right? So, yeah, man. Tremendous friggin' memories of all that stuff, and I'm sure there's a lot of melancholy A's fans and Raider fans right now.
I remember Sean and I one time were at spring training together in one of those, and he turned to me and said, "This water's cold," and I said, "Yeah, it's deep too." Wow.
Yeah, it's awfully deep too, man. Unbelievable, incredible. Unfortunately, you wouldn't know how deep it is. That's what I said to the guy. Judging from it, I said, "You raise field mouses," but other than that, nothing.
Jason saved me.
Oh my goodness. I think we just need to get that story anyway. Wrigley's still like that, by the way. I finally went to Wrigley and I was like, wait, what are we doing here? Yeah. It's just good old trough.
Yeah, and if you get the guy who's pitting out wearing a tank top.
Right.
Sitting at the trough. Hey, is that sweat or are you just happy to pee on me?
Well, here's a segue since we're talking memories of Oakland. Let's talk about current memories of a former Oakland team, but your team, the Raiders. I am curious. You have Jim Harbaugh's Chargers, and that was a fairly close game. They won. Then they get a pissed-off Baltimore team and beat them. No one had that. And then Carolina comes in and blows them out. They're going to keep Minshew in. We're not sure he's even part of the problem. What is your early season take on not just the Raiders, Sean, but Antonio Pierce?
Listen, I understand. See, players get lured into it. Antonio Pierce came in, got the interim job, and did a hell of a job. And when you go from assistant coach to head coach, assistant coaches are closer to the players. It's kind of buddy, right? You'll tell your assistant coach a lot of things you won't tell your head coach. Mm-hmm. And so you get into that, and then he gets into that mode, and your buddies, and then you got to be a head coach. There's a line of demarcation where it's like, there are certain places you can't go. He's now the head coach, and if you're not buddy, because now you're in the business part of it. You got front office dealings, you got contracts, you got all those things, but you're still trying to coach him and stay as close to relationship with players matter. I'm on Antonio Pierce's side on this. I am. I don't have a problem. He didn't call anybody by name. He simply said, well, we'll handle our business too, meaning as an organization. That's the way it is. I don't have a problem with it. That's basically calling you out without individualizing it and embarrassing a player. You're basically telling your team, whether it's sideline antics, whether it's not preparing right, whatever it is. I have zero issue with him because he didn't make it personal on one guy. He put it on everybody that there's some that, and he didn't name names, but it sends a message that we're watching and players got to deal with it. They're paid to play and win games. Now, if it keeps going and he loses a team, well, then they'll deal with that then. But I don't have any problem with a coach without naming names, but making sure the whole organization knows this is how we're going to do things. You want big contracts and you want holdouts and you want to, have some days off. Well, in order to have that constantly happen for you and us to win, you got to stand on business, man. And unfortunately, our Raiders haven't done that enough. And they let a team that the first 2 weeks of the season wouldn't have beat Modern Day High School on a Friday night, or let's go up to your area, De La Salle High School, right? And they came in there and played well, and Dalton played well. I don't have any problem with the coach sending a message instead of letting it fester. If you got an issue with the coach, take his ass into the room and sit down and find out what's going on. No issue here.
On that other side, just curious on going to Dalton, who's kind of just that veteran guy that you can count on, but you draft Bryce Young number one. That's the guy you need to be your future. Dalton's just flat out better. I mean, what about that quarterback situation?
Got to make and you know what? And Bryce Young's handling it. Listen, when you're playing awful football as a team and the quarterback's a big reason why, and I love Bryce Young, but he's never had failure. He didn't have failure at Modern Day High School. He didn't have any failure in college. This is his first failure. And so it's not a bad thing to have to deal with it. And people are tripping. Oh, man. Well, he's not C.J. Stroud yet, or maybe not Jaden Daniels, but he looks like a rookie or an early second-year guy, sometimes looks on a very average at best team. So anybody that quits on him right now is making a mistake way too early. He's played, 16, 17 games? How he handles this and comes back from this in 3 or 4 weeks or at the end of the season will be a telling tale on how he handles the rest of his career. Dealing with failure is hard, man. Just like dealing with success is. So it's not a bad thing. He should be on the bench. He's earned the right to go there because he didn't play well. And Andy Dalton played better. He's a calming veteran who's not your long-term answer, but to stabilize it. And then Bryce Young gets to sit back and say, oh, that's how you're supposed to do it. Listen, we all want a Hall of Famer in front of our first-round pick that he can learn behind. That's not the reality of football. Bryce Young's got a lot of learning and growing to do, and they've got a lot to do in the organization for him to answer the bell as their franchise quarterback. But right now, if they didn't play Andy Dalton, they'd be telling the rest of the players that we care more about one individual when we do the team. I'm not in the feel-good business. The feel-good business is winning. I'm not in the, I feel bad for your feelings. You just got to deal with it on the business side and deal with some demotion and get back at it and be better the next time around. I'm in it to win games, and I'll give lifetime achievement awards at the end of your career. Bryce Young's got some growing. Andy Dalton should be the starter, and Bryce Young needs to sit back and understand what it's like to go through this part of failure and how you're going to fix it.
Last thing for you, Sean, kind of on that Bryce Young note. We remember, and we talked about this before, that Troy Aikman and Peyton Manning were a combined 2-30 their rookie years. Yeah. You also have Aaron Rodgers, who waited behind Brett Favre. You had Jordan Love, who waited behind Aaron Rodgers. And you have Sam Darnold, after finally getting out of Carolina and New York with the Jets, spending a year learning under Kyle Shanahan, and it seems like he's with a decent organization now, and he's been fantastic. Do you tend to side one way or the other with this tremendous, insane, unfair pressure on these quarterbacks to perform? Are you more of a throw them in the swimming pool and let them sink or swim, or are you a clipboard for a year or two guy?
I'm a clipboard guy. If I lean towards playing if they're the best quarterback. If the veteran is going to play like a rookie, play the rookie. I've always said that. If your veteran's going to make rookie mistakes, and we've seen it happen, and it happens. Tom Savage, when he was here and Watson was a rookie, Bill O'Brien said, we're going to stick with Tom Savage. He's a veteran. Halfway into the first game, at halftime, he made the switch, and Tom Savage never saw the field again. So each individual case is different. C.J. Stroud, how can I judge C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young the same way I judge C.J. Stroud once I find out? Or look at Jaden Daniels. He ain't playing or poised like a rookie. He looks like he's been in the league 3 or 4 years. And that may be different than Caleb Williams, even though he put up a lot of yards. Or it may be different than last year's rookie or next year's. Kenny Pickett next guy. Say it's compartmentalized. Each individual case, they're not all the same. Manning wasn't the same as Aikman, who weren't the same as Baker Mayfield, who's not the same as C.J. Stroud, who's not the same as Mahomes. Now, if you got a Hall of Famer like Brett Favre in front of you and Aaron Rodgers can sit, that's great, especially if the guy that's sitting is paying attention and learning. It's the guy who doesn't that's still not ready when his time comes. But obviously Rodgers was. So I'm not worried about the fragility of confidence, because in my scouting, if I'm a front office and I draft a quarterback and the rookie and the veteran are there and the rookie beats him out because we want to play him and the veteran hasn't created separation in the competition, play the rookie. Well, Sean, what if he loses confidence 3 games in? If a little bit of failure ruins his confidence, guess what I'm telling you? You didn't do enough due diligence. You shouldn't have drafted him in the first 5 picks anyway, if that's the case. They're going to get kicked in the teeth. They're going to struggle. Manning through 28 picks his rookie year. Turned out okay for him. They had ups and downs. He's rejuvenated his career. Look at Darnold. That position, if you're faint of heart, probably the wrong position to play. So I'm drafting a guy, not just physical toughness, and the if you need to find out early than 5 years in and realize he set my franchise back a decade. So I'll play him if he plays if the rookie and the veteran are equal. I'll let the rookie go in there. The chalkboard doesn't move. I got to have him learn on the fly, and some handle it better than others. If you have a Hall of Famer in front of you, well, God bless you. You're lucky to have a guy that can teach the young guy. But a lot of times these young guys are better than the veteran. But each case is different. Sam Darnold and C.J. Stroud are different when they were rookies, period.
That's Sean Salisbury giving us a double dose. We appreciate that. And as always, we talk to Sean Salisbury each and every week. Have a wonderful weekend, my brother. Enjoy the football and stay out of that deep water in the trough.
Well, sometimes you can't avoid it, brother. It finds you. I'll talk to you guys, man. Thanks.
Yeah, Sean Salisbury. We'll take a break. When we come back, more A's memories. We see some of you on the text line.